Russia, a land of cultural splendor and monumental heritage. Russia is a country of extraordinary diversity and profound cultural heritage, with a history that spans from the early Slavic settlements to the vast empire of the Tsars, the Soviet era, and its modern federation. Stretching across Europe and Asia, Russia is the largest country in the world, and its culture reflects a unique blend of Eastern and Western influences. From the grandeur of the Kremlin to the colorful domes of St. Basil's Cathedral and the cultural richness of cities like St. Petersburg and Moscow, Russia is home to some of the most iconic buildings and monuments in the world. In this script, we will dive deep into the rich cultural heritage of Russia, exploring its history, iconic monuments, and the role of architecture in shaping its national identity. 1. Early Russian culture and the foundations of the Tsardom. Russian culture has its roots in the early medieval period, with the establishment of Kievan Rus in the 9th century by East Slavic tribes. The adoption of Christianity in 988 under Prince Vladimir of Kiev marked a major turning point in Russian culture, as it led to the formation of a distinct Russian Orthodox identity that continues to influence the country's art, architecture, and religious life. The early Russian state centered around Novgorod and Kiev gave rise to a culture that was deeply influenced by Byzantine traditions. Russian Orthodox Christianity inspired the construction of stunning churches and monasteries, with their unique onion-shaped domes and vibrant frescoes. One of the earliest examples is the St. Sophia Cathedral in Novgorod, built in the 11th century. It set the architectural tone for Russian ecclesiastical architecture with its austere yet majestic design, its gold domes, and its religious iconography. As Mongol invasions in the 13th century weakened Kievan Rus, power shifted to Moscow, where the foundation of the Russian Tsardom was laid. Moscow would eventually become the heart of Russian culture and the epicenter of political power. 2. The Kremlin, the heart of Russian power. The Moscow Kremlin is not just a fortress, it is the symbolic and political heart of Russia. Located in the center of Moscow, the Kremlin has served as the residence of the country's rulers for centuries, from the Tsars to the Soviet leaders and now the modern Russian president. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most important architectural complexes in the world. The origins of the Kremlin date back to the 12th century, but its most iconic structures were built during the reign of Ivan III in the late 15th century, when he invited Italian architects to redesign the complex. This collaboration gave rise to the distinct blend of Russian and Italian Renaissance styles that characterize the modern Kremlin. Within its walls, visitors can find a collection of stunning buildings, including the Assumption Cathedral. Built in 1479, it is the main church of the Russian state and the site of the coronation of Russian Tsars. Its 5 golden domes and intricate frescoes are examples of Russian ecclesiastical architecture at its finest. The Ivan the Great Bell Tower. Rising 81 meters high, this bell tower was once the tallest structure in Moscow. It symbolizes the unity of the Russian state and has served both a religious and defensive purpose. The Grand Kremlin Palace. Built in the 19th century, this lavish palace was designed to emphasize the power and prestige of the Russian Tsars. It is still used for state functions today. The Kremlin also houses the Tsar Bell and the Tsar Cannon, massive symbols of Russia's imperial might, although neither was ever used for their intended purpose. The Kremlin's walls and towers are a reminder of Russia's turbulent history, standing as both a fortress and a political symbol of Russia's resilience. 3. St. Basil's Cathedral, a symbol of Russian identity. Just outside the Kremlin, in Red Square, stands one of Russia's most iconic structures, St. Basil's Cathedral. Built between 1555 and 1561 by order of Ivan the Terrible to commemorate his victory over the Kazan Khanate, the cathedral is famous for its vibrant colors and distinctive onion domes. St. Basil's is a masterpiece of Russian architecture and a symbol of the country's national identity. The cathedral consists of 9 individual chapels arranged around a central church, each topped with a uniquely designed dome. These domes are meant to symbolize the flames of a bonfire rising into the sky, creating a dynamic and otherworldly effect. The bold colors and whimsical shapes of the domes reflect the Russian flair for intricate design and creativity. The interior of the cathedral is just as impressive, with narrow corridors leading to small chapels, all richly decorated with frescoes, icons, and religious art. St. Basil's is not only a place of worship but also a cultural symbol that has become synonymous with Moscow and Russia as a whole. 4. The Winter Palace and the Hermitage Museum, Imperial Grandeur in St. Petersburg. The city of St. Petersburg, often called Russia's window to the West, was founded by Peter the Great in 1703 as part of his efforts to modernize and Europeanize Russia. The architecture of St. Petersburg reflects this ambition, with its grand Baroque and neoclassical buildings, wide boulevards, and extensive canals reminiscent of European capitals like Paris and Amsterdam. At the heart of St. Petersburg is the Winter Palace, the former residence of the Russian emperors. Built in the mid-18th century by the Italian architect Bartolomeo Rastrelli, the Winter Palace is a stunning example of the Russian Baroque style, with its bright green facade, white columns, and gold trim. The palace's opulent interiors, including the Jordan staircase and the Malachite room, showcase the wealth and power of the Russian monarchy. Today, the Winter Palace is part of the State Hermitage Museum, one of the largest and most prestigious art museums in the world. The Hermitage's collection includes over 3 million works of art, ranging from ancient Egyptian artifacts to European masterpieces by artists like Leonardo da Vinci, Rembrandt, and Picasso. The museum's vast collection is housed not only in the Winter Palace, but also in several adjoining buildings, making it a cultural treasure trove that rivals the Louvre and the British Museum. 5. The Cathedral of Christ the Savior, a testament to faith and rebirth. Another landmark that symbolizes the resilience of Russian culture is the Cathedral of Christ the Savior in Moscow. Originally constructed in the 19th century to commemorate Russia's victory over Napoleon, the cathedral was demolished in 1931 under Joseph Stalin, who planned to build a massive palace of the Soviets on the site. However, these plans never came to fruition, and the site became a public swimming pool. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the decision was made to rebuild the cathedral, and it was completed in 2000. The reconstructed Cathedral of Christ the Savior stands as a powerful symbol of the Russian Orthodox Church's resurgence and the revival of religious faith in post-Soviet Russia. Its golden domes and marble-clad walls make it one of the most impressive modern buildings in Moscow, and it continues to play a central role in Russian religious and cultural life. 6. Soviet architecture. The rise of socialist realism. The Soviet period brought a radically different approach to architecture, characterized by the rise of socialist realism, which sought to glorify the achievements of the communist state and its leaders. Massive public buildings, housing complexes, and monumental statues were constructed across the country, reflecting the power and ideology of the Soviet Union. One of the most famous examples of Soviet architecture is the Moscow Metro, often referred to as the Underground Palace, due to its opulent stations. Opened in 1935, the Moscow Metro was designed not only as a transportation system but also as a showcase of Soviet power and the people's achievements. Many of the stations are adorned with chandeliers, mosaics, sculptures, and marble, making the metro a unique combination of utility and beauty. Another iconic Soviet building is the Palace of the Soviets, which was planned to be the tallest building in the world, topped with a giant statue of Lenin. Although it was never completed, the idea of monumental Soviet architecture lives on in buildings like the Seven Sisters, a group of skyscrapers built in the Stalinist style that dominate the Moscow skyline. 7. Russian folk culture. Wooden architecture and village traditions. While Russia's cities are known for their grand stone and brick buildings, the country's rural areas have preserved a tradition of wooden architecture that reflects the simplicity and beauty of Russian folk culture. In regions like Karelia and Vologda, visitors can find traditional wooden churches, houses, and windmills that date back hundreds of years. One of the most famous examples of wooden architecture is the Church of the Transfiguration on Keezy Island, built in 1714 without a single nail. Its 22 wooden domes rise above the landscape in a remarkable display of craftsmanship, and the church has become a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Russian folk culture is also expressed through traditional crafts like matryoshka dolls, embroidered textiles, and icon painting. These crafts continue to play a vital role in Russian culture, preserving the traditions of the past while also evolving to meet the demands of modern life.